Hello again, everybody. It's Scott Casper, Takedown Wrestling. Special interview brought to you by our friends at O4 Water. The Associate Director of Championships and Alliances at the NCAA has a lot of responsibilities. One of them is determining what's best for the championships. He joins us today from the NCAA offices in Indianapolis, Anthony Holman. Anthony, how are you?
I'm doing well, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Last weekend on the radio program, the national show, we had Mike Allen on. Mike Allen, of course, a well-known official in the sport of wrestling, one who cares about the overall outcome of the sport, one who cares about the timing, the speed, the accuracy of our officials. When we first started talking, Mike and I up at the Midlands, he told me about this new official evaluations progress and process that the Big Ten, Big 12, and MAC conferences had hired him to do. We talked about it extensively. We went to commercial break, and several coaches that followed him during the course of the interviews that day also commented on the idea of evaluating officials. The NCAA has a process that involves very, very similar, actually, very similar ideas on how to advance officials through the process of their junior years on into their senior years, and even earning the honor to represent all the officials at the Division 1, 2, and 3 levels at the championships. Can you describe your position on the NCAA officials and the evaluation?
Yeah, certainly. So we're in our second year of our program, and I was really happy to hear that Mike Allen, as the coordinator for the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the MAC, he had a lot of discussion with me following last year's efforts and said, "Hey, I want to do this at the conference level as well." So our programs are somewhat similar and focus, and that is trying to identify the best officials and provide some feedback for quality officials. So that's one of the goals. But ours primarily focuses on for the national championship for all postseason at all three divisions. And the committee a couple years ago established some criteria that we wanted to have in place, and that officials would know, hey, what do I need to do to be a postseason eligible official? So we've identified that there's a minimum test score that they have to achieve. They have to attend clinics and camps. They have to get evaluated through our evaluation system and have favorable evaluations and coaches rankings and all those things. And then our evaluation piece is we employ 8 or 9 different evaluators across the country, and we send them out from the national office to evaluate officials that are on our watch list, for lack of a better term. And those watch lists come from guys like Mike and conference offices and assigners and things of that nature to say, hey, here are some good officials that we need to see. But the bigger thing and the most important thing for us was that we wanted to have quantifiable data to really make educated decisions about what officials were being assigned in the postseason, and that's how this program has evolved.
And in looking at your forms, the NCAA forms, and then, of course, the forms provided to me by Mike Allen in his Big 10, Big 12, and MAC conference job as the master evaluator, and understand that there's and I want you to explain to the difference, because with Mike's program, the officials evaluate themselves, okay, which is
Yep.
an interesting. If you step back and look at what they say about their work, it's rather interesting.
Sure.
I think Mike's comment was every official may see himself as a 4 or 4.5 or whatever, when in fact he's a 3 or a 3.5. You know that Mike is a very astute, very smart man.
Absolutely.
But he knows exactly what he's doing. And you know what? Point on, he's probably right in most regards when it comes to how officials see each other or themselves. And then the step 2 would be coaches evaluating officials. And then Mike, as the master evaluator, puts it all into the program, or it's all installed in the program, and it comes out with the averages, the weighted averages, and the end results. How does that differ from the NCAA? It sounds like you have employed others to do the evaluation as a third or even a fourth eye.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So, from the national office perspective, again, as I mentioned, we've contracted with evaluators, and these are former officials that worked at a very high level, or some coaches or administrators that are tied to wrestling, and we provide them with an official's evaluation sheet. It's almost like Scott, if your producer or your general manager at your station would say, "Hey, here's your year in review, and here's the matrix we're going to use," and we provide each of them with that, and it looks at 6 or 7 different components. Mechanics, kind of do officials do well in their positioning and their anticipation and movement, their presentation, do they look professional, they're in good shape, can they move to get into the right places? How do they do with signaling, their verbal and visual commands, their judgment? Do they have a good understanding of the rules? And then their match control, which is really important to me. Do they have poise? Do they communicate well with the student athletes and the coaches? Do they maintain control of the mat? And then we have a numeric matrix that ranks them on a 5-point scale. So that is the numeric piece of it. One thing that you mentioned about coaches, we do see coaches input, but I say it's 2 different things. We ask coaches to rank the officials. I don't, all respect to those coaches, but I don't think they are equipped to evaluate. I think what we do with our training of our evaluators is very specific, and they are trained and equipped with the evaluation tool to evaluate officials. Coaches certainly have an input, and I think what we ask for them is, give me your ranking. You've seen these officials. Based on the officials that you see, how does this official rank? And we give them some matrix to use, but I'm not asking them about positioning or mechanics, because quite honestly, they're not equipped to do that.
Should they be? Should coaches be required to certify at some level
I
for?
think they should be required to certify on a rules test, or sportsmanship and some things like that. But it's not their job to go to a 2-day clinic like our officials do in some cases to learn positioning and mechanics and things like that. Coaches might think they know that, and again, all due respect to them, but they don't. They make an assumption based on their wrestling knowledge, and that knowledge is valuable, and that's why we want their input about a ranking of an official. But I don't think it's, at least in this tool that we're using, coaches rank, evaluators evaluate, and then we utilize both of those as part of the selection criteria.
Let's talk about stalling. Stalling,
Yeah.
if we can, please. Stalling, fleeing, penalties. This is one of the things on your list, the things to look for when evaluating. And on Mike Allen's list, it's actually, I believe, the same thing. And these are some of the best fans, and those are people we care about, surely. Both the NCAA, us here at Takedown, USA Wrestling, etc. I believe everybody that is a true fan of the sport understands what stalling is, understands what fleeing is. I'm sure the illegal holds, it's really not that's not an important component for me anyway. But when it comes to stalling, if stalling was called faster, wouldn't it serve to increase the momentum of a match?
In my opinion, yes, I absolutely would say that that's the case. And part of what you've seen the Wrestling Rules Committee do over the last couple of years is try and implement rules that promote action, that promote continuous flow, that promote scoring. And stalling's just, something that takes away from that. So that's why you're seeing more and more rules that get at that. Some of the traditionalists would say that, stalling is an inherent part of the sport, and it's the strategies that some may use because they feel like they're better conditioned or what have you. But what we're trying to do is to make sure that we make our sport attractive, not only to those folks that are tied to wrestling and have some kind of historical kind of perspective on it. But we want it to be exciting to the casual fan as well, and get them to come back.
So, listen, for me, all wrestling's exciting, but I've seen a lot of 2-1 matches in my life.
Sure.
Some would say a shot clock, as in basketball. There's a 30-second shot clock that was installed. A lot of folks, when it was installed, didn't like it.
Right.
But it has improved, total point scoring. It has made the game faster to watch, more enjoyable. Do we ever see that? Does the NCAA ever see the employment of a shot clock, perhaps?
Boy, I don't think so. And in my personal perspective on that, Scott, I don't have any knowledge or a vote even on the rules. Is that I would hope not, because I want us to have rules that spurn action, but I wouldn't want us to ever get away from what some of the traditionalists would call that may deter or threaten some of the core principles that were instilled in wrestling. So I'm cautious about that. But what I'd like to see, and what I'm trying to do, is empower our officials to have the courage to make that call, because the rule says to make that call. And then if we do that on a consistent basis, student athletes and coaches adjust. Where we have the trouble is when officials are sometimes concerned that, hey, I don't want to make that stall call. I don't want to affect the outcome of the match by making that call now. But when you do that, you are still affecting the outcome, because you're putting perhaps the other student athlete at a disadvantage that's following or conducting the match by the letter of the law of how it's written in the rules. So that's really what I'm trying to empower our guys. I talk to them and say, hey, if you call the match the way the rules are prescribed, even if coaches don't like it or fans are on you, I'll protect you. I've got your back, because you're doing as directed. And then if we need to adjust the rules, then we'll do it. But when we get in trouble, is we open ourselves up for variances and interpretations, and I think that's where the trouble comes.
So, which is perhaps subjectivity?
Yeah, and there's always going to be some of that because of the nature of the sport. But in areas where we can make it black and white, let's do that.
And it's not the human condition. It's not the idea of I'm human, I'm going to make a mistake, or I'm human, I'm going to call it this way. It's a good official takes himself out of it. It's almost mechanical. I think Mike Allen perhaps is. I don't want to keep throwing Mike out there, but he's the best example of an official who would take himself out of the match and insert an official. I mean, that's the best, perhaps, quality statement I can give about Mike, is that it didn't matter who was wrestling, the color of the uniform, the color of the anklet. It was called evenly on both sides, 99.9% of the time. And man, that is a hard job.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I've officiated never wrestling, but basketball and baseball, and you really, the best officials are those that after the contest is over, people didn't even realize you were there. Yeah. And that's to me, that's the highest praise. That's the highest compliment, because no one's got anything to say about the officiating, which means the student athletes took care of the action on the mat, and he or she the official did their job and didn't affect the outcome.
Where are we at on our officials pool? Your estimation, is it growing? Is it getting better? What can we do to help increase the total number of officials that would be qualified to work in CAA championship level?
Well, so two things. We started a couple years ago we made a wholesale change to the approach with officiating. So I got to say that we probably lost some officials because we raised the bar in terms of what the requirements were, in terms of registration and testing and accountability. So we lost some folks, to be honest. But in my view, those weren't the folks that we wanted anyway, quite honestly. But I do want to build the pool, and by how I think we can do that is by providing folks with transparency and opportunity. And if we talk to our student athletes that are current wrestlers or former wrestlers, and dads or moms that still want to be connected to wrestling and understand it, I want to give them a chance to be a part of this as well. So that's what we've tried to provide this transparency and say, if you do A, B, C, and D, you can be a collegiate official. If you do E, F, and G, you could be a postseason official. If you do X, Y, and Z, you could be a national championship official. So it's then your choice to decide at what level do you want to commit to.
You've been in sports for a good number of years at the NCAA and elsewhere. Right now, sports is there's potential challenges, specifically to Olympic level sports at college level, and even at the high school level. Is the NCAA preparing itself for these challenges? Are we? I shouldn't say we, as the NCAA, helping to prepare our coaches, our athletic directors for the eventual decisions that may or may not come that could affect the very livelihood and life of Olympic level sports?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
It's a great question. I think I'll tell you, starting here tomorrow, I believe, tomorrow, the NCAA annual convention begins in D.C., and that'll absolutely be topic of discussion for our membership. In terms of what's going on here at the national office, certainly our staff is dialed into that, and we're paying attention to that, and we're providing the membership with data in terms of participation rates and the benefits of Olympic sports and the opportunities for student athletes. But at the end of the day, and I don't want this to sound cavalier, but at the end of the day, we're a membership-driven organization, so we serve at the pleasure of our membership. So it's really up to our member institutions, conferences, to decide what's best for them in terms of what sports to sponsor and how to go about it. And then we will put in place mechanisms to run that and operate that on their behalf. But we certainly, as a national staff, believe that Olympic sports are inherently important, and that we absolutely want to continue to have those. And it's important that those thrive as much as some of the more mainstream sports of a football or men's basketball.
How has your job changed from assistant executive director to the job you have today? Is it harder? Is it more inclusive? Is it longer hours? What is it?
Yeah, that's what my wife says. It's supposed to be shorter hours, but it did extend. It changed in terms of responsibility. The amount of staff that I now work with or am responsible for, the amount of resources that come with that, and that I'm charged with being the steward of, are the primary things that have changed the most, and that from that jump from assistant to associate.
So tournament site selection, is that part of your purview?
It is. It is. We fortunately have gone through that process for the next 4 years, and I imagine we will look for sites beyond 2018, probably sometime in following the 2016 championship.
Are the days of and I know we're falling off track here a little bit, but you know what? Inquiring minds want to know.
Sure.
Are the days of seeing the NCAAs on collegiate campuses, are those pretty much gone?
Seeing, and maybe I'm not following.
Let's
seeing
say the
NCAA wrestling?
NCAA wrestling championships, for example, at the University of Iowa or Penn State, or are those pretty much gone? Is it a primary or a bigger responsibility than only cities and sports associations with relationships to college programs? Is that pretty much the future?
Wow, I wouldn't want to eliminate institutions, because if their facilities meet the bid specs, they certainly can and are encouraged to bid. What has happened? It's our championship has grown to a level that it's really difficult for an institution to host because of the staffing and the needs. I mean, we're planning championships 2 years out, 3 years out, and to put that burden responsibility on the staff of the athletic department at Iowa or Penn State or some others, along with their other responsibilities, I think is maybe more than, at least it has been recently, more than what the institution wants to take on. We certainly have membership host in terms of Missouri, for example, and St. Louis. They are our institutional hosts, and they will provide us with support with media services and athletic trainers, and help to provide some volunteers around our championship. But the primary planning and the heavy lifting of that will be done by our staff, the staff at the Scott Trade Center, the St. Louis Sports Commission. So it's not all on the University of Missouri. And if it's on your campus, that dynamic changes a little bit. So good question. And is it open? Could they? Absolutely. Do I think that would happen? I think that'd be a tough one. An institution would have to make a real commitment to that.
And a big commitment indeed. St. Louis, that's the site for the NCAA's this year. Division One is, I mean, a lot of folks have got their eyes set on St. Louis. Division Two, I do believe, as well, right?
Yeah, St. Louis, Maryville in the St. Louis area is hosting our Division II championship, so we're excited about that. And then we've also just announced earlier this week, in collaboration with our friends at USA Wrestling, that there will be a large youth tournament going on during the weekend of our national championship, actually starting Sunday following the Division I championship out at Lindenwood College, and that's in the St. Louis area. So it's going to be 2-3 weeks of wrestling, nonstop wrestling in the St. Louis market. So we're excited about that.
Originally designed to be an interview about the officials' evaluation. We've grown from that just a bit. I apologize, but it's not often we get a chance to talk with Anthony Holman of the NCAA. Anthony, we're obviously looking forward to seeing you and your staff. I don't think there's a better championship available to sports fans than the NCAA championships for wrestling. It's a party. It's serious business. The officials obviously want to be there, and I know you want to have the best officials working these events. Are you seeing results from this that will lead you to, and I'm talking about the official evaluations, are you seeing results from this that will lead you to a better pool long-term? Final question.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt, and not only that, it helps us. It's helping our team, our national coordinator of officials, our secretary of rules editor, in areas where we see some things. Here's a great example. We see some things that may consistently come back from our evaluators about officials, about mechanics or positioning, things that consistently we aren't doing at a high level. Well, that means we need to change our training and our education. So it provides us that vehicle as well. So it gives us the evaluation and identifying the best official, but it also tells us, hey, what do we need to do to help our officials? And then we share that information with our officials that are evaluated, and they continue to improve. So it's a cycle. You know, we increase the pool of quality officials, and we continue to raise the level of officiating at the collegiate level.
Folks, you can follow along with the NCAA where on ncaa.com and click on sports, click on wrestling. You'll find news, recent stories, and, of course, all the information you need to know about the championships as they come up. Tickets, you're going to get your tickets, man. I just got my ticket invitation in the mail today.
Good.
My email form, it's already been filled out.
Okay.
I changed my password, but, man, I am in. And
Good.
I can't wait, man. I tell you what. Special compliments to your staff, Anthony. You have some people that are dear to me that absolutely do their job. Top drawer people. Who would you like to recognize from your staff?
Oh boy, my entire team. I know you had a pleasure of working with Paula Buchalter on our staff on some in-venue stuff. Paula's transitioned into a new role here at the national office, so she won't be directly involved. But Ann Holman from our staff will take over some of our in-venue things, and I know she'll do a great job. Scott Fosler does terrific stuff with our branding and our Fan Fest, and Heidi Worster from our operations team that works closely with me, make sure that folks are where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. So just great stuff. Matt Holmes does a terrific job helping to facilitate folks like yourself and our media people. And so we just got, I'm really blessed and fortunate to have a great team to work with.
No, we're looking forward to working with you all again coming up this March, St. Louis. Folks, won't you join us? Our guest today has been Anthony Holman. He is the Director of Championships, the Associate Director of Championships and Alliances at the NCAA. He's one of the top guys in the business, and we appreciate his leadership. Anthony, appreciate the time today. We'll look forward to talking to you soon. It all started for you at Augustana, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Go Vikes.
Go Vikes. How about
Go
that?
Vikes.
Folks, thanks for watching. I'm Scott Casper, and this has been a special interview brought to you by O4 Water. Don't hydrate the hustle, hydrate the muscle.